Friends, welcome into the Loochador Podcast, brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Remember, you can get the Jordan brand. That's why we got the ball right here. Billy and I, hooping. He's Billy. I'm David, by the way. Hooping a moment ago in the studio. Probably broke some stuff. We'll get in trouble.
I broke something over there, but, you know.
Billy with an amazing form with his outside shooting.
Well, you were it's a good. Nuño had a couple of steals before I knew the level of intensity that he was playing with in here, but I took a couple of shots that, it's a good look when you're accusing it of being a travel. I'm like Kareem out there. I'm like grabbing, I'm posting up. It's like this. It's slippery. It's like I'm doing this to him.
You did start the game with three turnovers. 3 turnovers to start. That's not a good start.
All right.
So, let's talk some football.
I like this basketball, though. I do wish it had a little more air in it. You got it like.
You can get it at Academy, by the way.
I'm palming it like.
I had this same ball.
It's got Jordan on it. I feel like I look like I'm Jordan right now. The way I was keeping it away from me.
I don't think that was the case
with
at all.
A child.
We've got Josh's security camera version of it, and we've got this. So, by the way, I had this ball as a kid in the 80s. Mm-hmm. It just didn't say Legacy, but it's the exact same ball. So many people watching probably did as well. All right, let's talk.
If I went to Academy, I would buy I probably will now that we say an orange basketball, which is what they play with.
I don't do orange. I'm an Aggie.
That's not a burnt orange basketball. It's an orange basketball.
I wore an orange tie on on ABC 13 once, and I got hate mail from Aggie. So I decided no more orange in my wardrobe. Hey, let's start off with kickoff.
Let's go. We got a lot to discuss. This is a preseason edition.
Kickoff yesterday. I think my favorite part of it, there were a lot of things that I loved about it, but my favorite part from at least a Coach Elko perspective was when our subscribers, fans were asking him questions, how he was kind of ready. Like he had some really great answers when they asked about the prevent defense, when they asked about...
Well, he basically said, I don't play prevent.
And haven't since I've been a coach.
Yeah, basically saying if it looks like it, then it is because we screwed it up.
Right.
Or, something happened. But, yeah, he has great banter with the fans. He's, he's taking any and all questions. And, I like when they asked him about the holding penalties, too, the lack thereof on A&M defenders. And he basically said, like, what good is that going to do me? It's not changing anything. And he's right. Like, because I've said this before, when you send plays into the office, let's say you said, man, our guys got held 11 times in this game. And if they come back and say, you know what? You were right on 6 of those 11. You were right on 7 of those 11. You were right on 4 of those 11, whatever. They don't go back and change them. And you're naive if you think there's a discussion that's ever had saying, hey, guys, A&M got robbed on 6 holding penalties last week. Let's overlook some holds this week, or let's be more proactive and let's start calling holding against the whatever offense, South Carolina's offense this week against A&M. So make sure you call a handful of holding penalties. It doesn't work that way. I know in theory, I know what people say, well, no, bullshit. We'll put some pressure on these officials and make them feel the heat. Every week you just keep sending them in until they no. It's I know, man. I know that you think it works that way, and you think that where it doesn't. It's wasting. That's wasting Mike Elko's time each week during the season. Now, bad calls, like truly bad calls, those you turn in. I'm thinking of like the pylon play. I'm thinking of like Jaden Blue's touchdown catch against Texas in that corner of the end zone. If Elko and A&M thought that wasn't a catch, you certainly submit that. Hey, this was a big freaking play. Called it a touchdown. It wasn't, and I'm not saying it wasn't. That was right there. The fumble that wasn't called against LSU when Damani Richardson ripped that ball away, and that game should have been over. Like those type plays. I've talked to an official since then. It was like, that was a terrible call, and the whole crew knew it was terrible after the fact. They knew they got that one wrong. Those are the type ones. Yep. I don't think you do it with like, hey, here are several holding calls that we thought were holding.
Right.
You could. It doesn't change it. Remember everybody's doing that with Myles Garrett all year? What changed? his junior year, it was every week we were putting together, like, Stu Wade made a hilarious post graphic video about it, and nothing changed all year. So that's just kind of a waste of time. But I thought what wasn't a waste of time was sitting there with not only Elko, but all the coaches yesterday, but we're doing Loochador preseason football deal. And I thought, first of all, the event was awesome. I thought Elko was terrific. Bucky McMillan, great. Like, really, really good. It was great to get.
When we get to the Final Four, not if.
Yep.
That was awesome.
That's the longest anyone's got to sit down and hear Mike early, since the season. So there was a lot to throw back and forth and discuss there. And then I thought Trev Alberts was awesome. And I don't know, people that know me will know, I don't know how our setup is for people watching that. Is it done and off in the wind, or
I believe it's done and off in the wind.
Well, if you were there or if you watched it live,
if you paid for it, I think you can still watch it though.
Yeah, if you can still watch it, listen to Trev explain like the state of college football right now. And Hunter did a great job of asking the right questions. And I thought you got some really, really interesting. He's answering so much of what people have been asking for months in that setting, and answering it in a way that I think everyone can truly understand and go, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I see why that's not stabilized yet. So he talked about everything from special events like concerts and stuff to the presidential order from last week, so and all things in between. So I thought that was really good. But Elko, I'm sensing a coach that is, I've talked to him throughout the offseason, and I think he's a guy that's a lot more confident, optimistic about what the high-end potential of his football team is, and also what the floor is. Knowing that, hey, you play a bunch of close games, and if you lose a bunch of close games, your floor is lower than you think. But I think he knows, like, this team is at least this good, and they can be this good. And he's really encouraged by how much different that conversation is now than it was a year ago. I think he feels like they've got a lot of the intangibles down. He wants a veteran football team. I think he feels a lot better about the defense. He really talked a lot, David, as you know, about the secondary, and talked openly like, hey, that is usually the hardest thing to do in year one, are coverages. You can dial the offense up or down to whatever level you think they're at. Where's your quarterback at mentally? Right. What can he handle? How young or old are your receivers? How good is your blocking? Is your running game a strength? Is it a weakness? And you can tailor things to that. You can dumb things down in certain areas if you have to, if you're very inexperienced. If you can tell during practices, like, hey, this is coming slower for this group, this transition period, let's minimize what we're trying to do. Defensively, you could do that to an extent. You can stay more basic, but really you're at the mercy of what the offense is doing. So when that ball snapped, a lot of times you're seeing that confusion in coverage. And he talked a lot about the what game? Oh, he's talking about the Florida game earlier in the year when A&M won that game, and they kind of dominated, but right before half, and then when they were up like 33-6 or 7, whatever it was, or 20-9, there were times when Florida, and particularly with Graham Mertz, got things going in terms of tempo. And he's like, look, when things were conventional, we were 3 and out, getting off the field, sacks, couple turnovers. But when things were not, when they were able to speed up and go tempo on us, you start seeing these busts in coverage. Guys were open. And he was just saying that comes last a lot of times in a new scheme, a new system, and a new coaching regime. And I think I got the vibe that's where he thought this team was going to make its biggest jump from last year to this year, which is obviously vitally important. And that was one of my biggest takeaways. And then he talked a lot about that offensive line, that physicality, and the veteran component of his football team. A lot of guys that have played a ton of SEC football, and a lot of guys that are NFL bound. And he was very, very happy with their ability to keep a lot of those guys. Who did he say was a projected
third or fourth
round pick that came back?
Willie.
Was it Will Lee or was it? It was Cassius Howell. Yep, Cassius Howell. And I actually talked to a longtime buddy of mine in the NFL the other day and said, yeah, that probably, as far as draft picks go, that guy might be the guy right now that the NFL has highest in their eyes. There's going to be a little issue with arm length. He's a little short on the arm length side, but that's really like when they watch him, it's one of their only holdbacks. And he's also a guy that, from what I've heard, has had an absolutely terrific offseason in the weight room under Tommy Moffitt. So, but again, Cassius Howell came back. Trey Zune came back. Will Lee came back. Scooby Williams is a guy that could have gone. And some of these guys, they wouldn't have been first or second rounders. It probably wouldn't have been in their best interest. But in the past,
some guys
you've seen players do that. And these guys did not, and they stayed. Armage had a decision to make, and these guys stayed. Who else would I put in that boat? I don't think nobody else in the front seven really. That's probably, I might be forgetting someone, but that's probably about it. But those guys all return, and or Le'Veon Moss was another one. Like Elko said, that was complicated because of the injury. But bottom line is he's still, he's going to be healthy for fall. You've seen guys tear a knee and go in the draft. I think, who was it at Texas a couple of years ago? Jonathan Brooks did that. He tore his ACL late in the season and went ahead and got drafted. I think he had another year he could have returned. So you kept a lot of dudes that you might not otherwise have kept, a handful. And that's a big difference in your football team. You could tell he was fired up about taking the field. He said, teams don't win this league unless you have, 7, 8, 9, 10 more NFL draft picks. And he feels like they've got that right now.
All right, let's go through a couple of these questions I have for you. Going into camp, who is a name or two, most underrated player that we haven't kept an eye on just yet, maybe fans haven't, that you think in a month or two we'll be talking about?
I'll start off on defense, and I'll say Ryland Kennedy. I think Ryland Kennedy, because I just talked so much about Cassius Howell, and I've talked a lot about him in the offseason. And I didn't talk a lot about Ryland Kennedy. And the reason why is because Ryland Kennedy didn't practice a bunch in spring. He was battling an injury. Same thing with Terry Bussey, and that's another guy I'm going to talk about. Those guys, we weren't sitting there talking about them every day in the spring. But you think about what they showed last year. I had a guy this morning, one of my buddies, text me, and one of his buddies, who I know, who's Lord negative. I mean, he is exactly what our fan base tends to do sometimes in getting ahead of themselves with the negativity. This is the social media generation that I'm talking about. This guy's like, Terry Bussey's on the verge of being a bust. I'm like, what in the blue brick are you talking about? This guy came from the 1-2A high school ranks, played as a true freshman, moved from defense to offense at the SEC level midway through fall camp. And okay, you're going to play receiver now. Played receiver in a new offense in the SEC, and the response was, yeah, he had 200 yards. Playmakers showed themselves prior to that. He's kind of a hybrid receiver running back. So I said, okay, let's look up Devontae Smith, freshman year, 8 catches, 160 yards. Then he goes back and like, well, he's a running back. Look at Trey Wisner. Like, why? Like, what is it? Okay. Trey Wisner, freshman year, like 90 yards rushing or something as a true freshman. This was a true freshman in the SEC making a massive leap and going through a position change. He's still out there making a 20-yard catch against Texas. He's making plays. Was it the bowl game he had one? There was who was it? We're late. He had a long run. Anyway, as a runner and a pass catcher, made plays, looked like he had some juice in the return game. And everything I've heard since spring is Terry Bussey's a guy that's had a terrific offseason. So I expect his usage to go way up. And again, I'm not saying, a lot of these guys are promising, haven't shown much yet, haven't shown enough for us to anoint them.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? And I mean, hell, Marcel's one of those. But Marcel, I'm like, let's not forget, as we're trying to, shit on our own players, go compare him to other people. His ups were way more than his downs. His downs came on the road at night at South Carolina when they just couldn't keep up because the Aggie defense was really letting them down. And oh, by the way, you lost your bell cow back in that game. His other down was against Texas at Kyle Field where the whole team stunk. Whole offense stunk. Blocking stunk. Marcel stunk. Everybody stunk. That was against 2 of the 3 best defenses in the SEC. I mean, in one of the best defenses in the country. Let's not talk about the road comeback against Auburn. Let's not talk about the bowl game. Let's not talk about LSU or I was about to say Missouri or Florida when he's told, hey, you're going to start today. Let's just not talk about those. Let's focus on the 2. Because when you're talking about Lagway or Arch, if you're an Aggie, or Austin Simmons, you're not going, what did they do that compared to what Marcel? Let's compare those things. So when you're talking about Terry Bussey, or you're talking about what's A&M going to do, I got questions, and I think it's a fair question. Like, how is that D-line going to fare after losing 3 NFL guys? What do you know about South Carolina's D-line? What do you know about Florida's? What do you know about LSU's? Tell me all about Texas's defensive front. I know they got Colin Simmons. What else? They lost Broughton. They lost Collins, draft picks. They lost Barron Sorrell. Tell me all about that group. And I know they've got guys, but let's take that same microscope to them that you're taking to the A&M players. So Bussey and Ryland Kennedy, and again, like fans looking at A&M, they don't know much about those guys. We know a little more. We don't know enough to say breakout player, but I do think we know enough to say I think their contribution's about to be a lot more in 2025 than it was last year. Ryland is a guy that there's a few guys that I've been told had like terrific summer off seasons where it's like, okay, can't wait to see how that translates. And again, like, I'm not going to do the again. If you can't understand that I'm not saying these guys are going to be first-team All-SEC players this year, then you shouldn't listen. What I'm saying is they had great summers, and they have stood out. Their names come up a lot. Bussey, Cassius Howell, Ryland Kennedy. Elko mentioned him yesterday. What did he say? He said he added 100 pounds in his lifts. Yep. Not 100 pounds, 100 pounds in his lifts. So he's gotten a hell of a lot stronger, and speed and twitch are the name of his game too. So he's one. So those are my 2 that I'd first say. And a guy that I would say do not write off, that I think a lot of A&M fans have written off, is Des Ricks. I think if Des Ricks was on other teams, people would be going, well, I mean, don't forget him. He was a 5-star at Bama.
Right.
And I've talked to enough people at Bama that said, Nick Saban himself thought Des Ricks had the most potential of the young corners on their campus. You could ask probably a lot of Bama fans that. I would be interested to hear what Bama fans said when they lost him to A&M. Were they like, go ahead, you stink? Or, damn, that was the next in line when our first and second round draft picks at corner left.
Well, people think about the last game they saw. And that's
why.
And
he struggled. He's bad in that game. But this is a guy that I think is really refocused, probably due in large part to the way he finished the season. And I think people forget that was his first year playing college football because he was behind first and second rounder at Bama as a true freshman that also graduated early. That's a tough one to walk into at Bama in Tuscaloosa. So just a name to file away when you're saying, okay, what could be an improvement?
How about a couple names that didn't get all conference that could potentially get all conference?
Well, I'll start with Cassius Howell. I'll start there because I think I really like Albert Regis, but I think D tackles so much of you better be like insanely disruptive. I don't know that that's necessarily the name of his game. So I just think that's a hard one. You almost have to go off reputation.
Mm-hmm.
I think Cassius Howell, Dalton Brooks' upside screams that. He's not, but he didn't consistently. I don't want to get too far ahead with him because he didn't consistently. He didn't look like a guy that's just like completely ready to be week to week consistent. But that was his first year playing a ton of football, and damn if he didn't flash it at times. So I think Dalton Brooks is one that could get his hands on a lot of footballs and make plays and get notoriety that way. Those would be the two that jump out to me defensively as far as didn't get mentioned. And on offense,
A little harder.
because Moss got mentioned, Casey Concepcion.
Yep.
That's the first one that jumps out at me. I mean, he's that good. He's that good. So I think he's the one.
Maybe Marcel?
Maybe. I think that's tough. It's two quarterbacks. Receiver, there's going to be 6 of them.
Yep.
Defensive line, there's going to be 12 of them.
Right.
So, yeah, sure. I mean, but he's one of many. He's one of many. So,
well, if he is, that means we're having that
if
special
he is,
year.
I think A&M's in the playoff.
Right.
I don't think that's out of the question for him to be that guy. But,
No, yeah. Yep. But I think you're right. When there's 2, how about your 3 biggest concerns?
I think you start out with you got to be realistic about what they're facing defensively, which is I don't know if you rank the players 1 to 11. You certainly lost 3 or 5 best, if not
1,
more
2, and
than
3.
that. Yeah, I mean, the Shamars and Nick Scourt, I don't know if that's 1, 2, and 3. It might, but it potentially could be. It's certainly 3 or 5 best, I think. So, and they were all at one position. And that unit, that secondary, that back 7 that we talked about, has to make a huge jump. And there's a reason why Mike Elko said, I'm going to go over to that side of the ball and just be completely hands-on and make that my defense again. We didn't live up to the standard that I set as a head coach and that Texas A&M football needs to be about. So that's a lot. That's a large area that A&M needs to improve in. But Elko talked about it yesterday, and he's like, our biggest thing were the big plays.
Yeah.
He's like down to down, and because they go back and study all this stuff. And
they were actually really good until late, sometimes third down. And
well, you look at games, right? And you go, Notre Dame, they were really good with the exception of the 2 bust runs that were disastrous. They were 2, 1 what I would call long, 1 mid-range, 20-something yards, touchdown runs. That was the game. It was those 2. So, I mean, it's not to say I hate doing it like, well, it was only 2, but yeah, they were the 2 plays that lost you the game. But they played, if you go back to that game and say, did they play really good defense? The answer is yes. Did they get to Riley Leonard as much? No. Did Riley Leonard throw the ball in 3 steps almost the whole game? Yes. Is Riley Leonard pretty elusive anyway? Yes. We're all sitting there going, why didn't they get sacks? Well, Notre Dame decided that's not how we were going to lose this football game. We're going to play it in a phone booth. And who knows, if the Aggie offense would have performed a little bit better, what does that game look like with 2 minutes left instead of 13-13? If they end them up 20-13, like Missouri, they were really damn good.
Mm-hmm.
LSU, the second half was unbelievable. It wasn't like they weren't terrible in the first, but they were porous in the first half through the air. But they shut down Caden Durham, and then in the second half they completely shut down an LSU offense. They had a top 5 pick at tackle, NFL tight end, 3 NFL receivers, and a first-round quarterback. Shut them the frick down. South Carolina, I thought was bad defense. Auburn, I thought was bad defense. And Texas, it felt at times like they were running up and down, but it was kind of almost bend but don't break. You gave up 17 points to that Longhorn offense, and we could go down and name the players on that offense. And You gave up 17 and you forced, a couple of fourth quarter turnovers. You had a pick six. You were outscored when your defense was on the field by 10 points. That was not a bad defensive game. That was a bad stat game.
Right.
You take that output. If you went into that game and said Texas is going to score 17,
You feel like you have a chance.
you're going to have a pick six. You're going to force 2 turnovers, block a punt. Like the defense performed in that. That's not a bad game. USC, Auburn, and South Carolina. Those are the 3, and they were late in the year. So you got to look at why did it fade. But to me, it's can you erase the big play? And part of that is going to be stopping the run, setting them up behind the chains where your pass rush can get after it. And then you rush things, teams can't hit big plays on you. You're better in coverage on the back end. So my first concern is, what does this D-line look like? Not so much when it comes to getting after the quarterback. I really like Howell, Kennedy, Hayes, who had like 15 sacks at Pitt, TJ Searcy, potentially Mpemba, and Marco Jones. Like, I like DJ Hicks as an interior pass rusher. Anyadim, Regis. Like, I think that they're going to get after the quarterback, but can they stop the run? Can those guys plus York and Scooby, because there were some issues with run fits last year at times. And a lot of those big plays came on the ground. Texas game, we mentioned Notre Dame, South Carolina, obviously. We can talk all day about not tackling Sellers, but there were some gaping holes in that game, and Rocket Sanders, guys couldn't bring him down. So my concern will be with almost complete turnover there. Can they stop the run? Because that's the any defense, but particularly Elko's, is so built around fitting it up in the front 7 and then letting him get creative with blitzers from the linebacker and safety. I mean, linebacker, safety, and even corners.
Yep.
That's my number 1. My number 2 is, I just think number 2 to me is health of running backs. I mean, I think they've got a deeper stable than last year, but there's a reality in that, Moss is coming back from a pretty devastating knee injury. He's coming back, and Ruben missed the whole year with a foot and then had a procedure after the season. So and then Amari Daniels had rotator cuff, I guess, after the season. Those are your top 3 guys. And I think Le'Veon Moss is the best player on your football team. And they're all coming off-season surgery. One had a season-ending one essentially last year. One had a season-ending one in season. So that, to me, is a little bit of a concern. And then my other thing is that passing game has to make a big jump.
Get vertical.
They got to hit big. Elko talks about big plays and giving them up. I said this the other day. Show me an SEC champion. You might be able to say Georgia this past year. That might be one of the exceptions. An SEC champion that hasn't just turned in a ton of explosive plays.
Right.
You think about those Georgia teams with some of those backs and Bowers and McConkey and the mailman, Stetson Bennett. You think about LSU, Chase, Jefferson, Joe Burrow, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, all those guys. You go back to, you think about even Texas last year that played for an SEC title, and their playmakers at the skill spots. And then you go back to Bama, and you go, what happened with Alabama, where all of a sudden they started having real playmakers at receiver, at deep down the field and in the passing game. Clemson, we saw that firsthand with A&M when they were Trevor Lawrence and winning championships. So you have to have that. A&M's not going to just jump to that level in 1 year, but they've got to make a significant jump, and that's dependent on Colin Klein, Marcel Reed, and a whole bunch of new faces at receiver. So those would be my 3 concerns.
Top 3 position groups.
Top 3. Offensive line. I'll go running back 1, and it's again, they got a healthy running back room is 1. Again, I think I just talked about it. Amari Daniels is your 3rd guy and has had some big runs and really nice games against SEC teams in the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Go back and look at it. He's had some long distance runs and touchdowns against SEC opponents. I'd say South Carolina this year and Auburn last year. I think was it maybe even Auburn this year. Amari's had some moments and some games. And he's your third. And E.J. Smith turned some heads in the bowl game. And he's your fourth. And then you have two. I love that position group. O-line number two.
Yeah.
O-line number two. You, like I said before, you're seventh and eighth offense. Your eighth and ninth O-linemen are playing at Penn State and Alabama right now. If that doesn't tell you something, you got experience. You got NFL draft picks. I think you got guys that believe they're good, which I think is half the battle in college football at that position. You got to have a group that kind of walks around and knows they're good and they believe it and they all buy it together. We've seen that here. It's not a coincidence that 98, 2012, and 2020, and it's not enough years to be really damn good, but those were the really damn good seasons. That's a Big 12 title. That's a Sugar Bowl. That's a Cotton Bowl. That's an Orange Bowl. Yep. Those teams, Sugar, Cotton, Orange, right? The A&M's last three major bowl games. And those teams lined up with a bunch of NFL-bound offensive linemen, a bunch of grown men, a ton of experience, and they could run the football and win football games with physicality. The sport hasn't changed enough where that doesn't matter. So that's my second. Man, third is interesting, and I'm going to go off script here a little bit, and I'm going to say the special teams. You know, we don't think about that positionally, but man, I really like returning so much experience at punter and kicker. And Tyler White, I've said this before, that guy might play longer in the NFL than anybody on this football team. And that's not a knock on anybody else.
It just shows how good he is.
Look, I lived in college with a guy that played 18 years in the NFL, 19, whatever it was, because he's a punter and he was the best to ever do it. Tyler White could play a long, long time in that league, and he was exceptional last year about downing kicks inside the 5 and 10 yard line. Exceptional. He was a weapon. It's how you win football games. And so him and then Randy Bond is, you know, I don't want to say he's had too many downs, but you know, he's got to get a little more consistency. But Randy Bond's had a nice career at A&M. He's kicked a ton of clutch kicks. He's kicked in Jerry World. He's kicked on the road. He's kicked in big games. Like, he's a guy that it was really important to get him back. So I like where they're at in terms of the kicking game for sure. It'll be interesting to see who emerges outside of I mentioned Bussy earlier, but who out of this group could be return game weapons as well. That'll be a real fall camp question that I want to see answered is who starts to emerge, like who's going to be in South Bend returning kicks and punts for the Aggies? Is it going to be the steady, reliable guy, or are you going to say, damn, we got an actual weapon back here?
All right, let's go to the games. 2 toughest games on the schedule. I think it's easy, but I'd like to get your perspective.
I mean, is it? Well, I think we're going to
For me, it's LSU 1 and Texas 2.
Me too. You go LSU 1.
Yeah, I go LSU 1.
I don't think I disagree with you.
And let me just tell you my why.
I think Texas is better.
Texas is the better team.
Yeah.
But I think rivalry game, and I know LSU's a rival
It's a
too.
rivalry. In that.
Rivalry game, I think going to LSU is just a different animal. That's the why.
Well, I think A&M have not won there since they've joined the SEC.
Haven't won there since 94.
And I think LSU is one of those football teams, like a lot of teams in the SEC, that's going to play a lot better at home at night than they are anywhere else.
What did Mike say yesterday about night games in the SEC? It's different. And you know A&M LSU will be at night. Yeah.
And I understand, like, here's the thing. Like, Texas fans will hear that and they'll go, oh, yeah, that was real tough for us. They didn't gain that yard. They had 3 plays to gain 1 yard. And that game would have been, that atmosphere, that environment, that game, the final 7 minutes or so, would have been brutal on the visiting team. Quinn Ewers and that team would have taken the field, needing multiple first downs to keep A&M from getting the ball back with a chance to tie or win, and that crowd would have been going nuts. And let's be honest, Texas was a much better football team than A&M last season. Mm-hmm. They just were. They were within themselves within a yard of potentially playing for a national title or going to overtime to play for a national title against Ohio State. Within a yard, same deal. But the Aggies were unable to do it. Credit that Texas defense. I'm sure they'd love to get those calls back and, go with something else, maybe test it through the air once or whatever. We could talk about that all day. But it is a lot tougher when these teams, including A&M, at home, at night. So, like, LSU, it's the teams that are good, not great, and they can be great for a night on their home field. And LSU has always been one of those teams. South Carolina, always been one of those teams. And Auburn's always one. It's that pack of teams where you go, like A&M, if I'm the Aggies, we'll talk about this in a minute. I don't want to go to Arkansas at night. I don't want to go to Fayetteville. They're a much better. So, yeah, I'm with you. I go LSU 1, Texas 2, and I leave off Notre Dame. Not to say that's not going to be a tough game, but I just think if you're going to.
When you get them on the schedule, too, I think it helps you.
If you're going to win one of those three, I'm like, go to South Bend in September and get that win. Get that win and then be like, now we're house money. If we go on the road and get LSU or Texas and you're 2-1 in those three, wow. Now you're talking about a special season. But go get that first one because those other two, I think, are your hardest two games of the season.
And just the fact that you get them in week 3 of the season as they're still, look, they're going to be tested a little bit more than you are because they get Miami right off the shoot. Yeah. And Miami's got a lot of talent. I don't know if they're going to be good, but they have a lot of talent. But getting C.J. Carter, if it is C.J. Carter, that early, I think it gives you a sliver of hope mentally going on the road. I'm saying as a fan, not the team. That's, I think, winnable.
I think Notre Dame and A&M are just really evenly matched in terms of like just even style and stuff. And they're just going to, that game will look, it's just going to be a hard-fought physical football game that either team's going to be able to win. It should be. If either team doesn't show up and hold up their end, then they're going to feel really bad about themselves coming out of that one. I think it should be a hard-fought, physical as hell, Love, Moss, running game, defense, front seven, stop. It's just going to be physical, and it's going to be like who can hit big plays or are both teams going to say we're not going to try the big play because we don't want to give up a game changer by the other how's it going to go? I think it's going to be a 60-minute just step inside a phone booth and slug it out. They match up to create that kind of game, in my opinion. Still think those other two are tougher.
2 swing games. The 2 swing games.
Swinging the A&M season. I mean, I think Notre Dame is one of them. I don't want to go. I just think if you look at the SEC and you're talking about like, wait, what's a real success? What is a step forward? It's 9-3. You don't beat Notre Dame, you go 6-2 in the SEC. A&M's done that once. I was with Johnny Manziel his first year. They went 4-4 the next year with him. They've done it twice. They had an all SEC schedule in 2020 where they were 9-1, 8-1. They didn't play Ole Miss. They've done it twice in 13 years, 6-2 or better. If you beat Notre Dame, then you go 5-3, and we're 9-3, and it's a breakthrough, like not a breakthrough, but a step forward. And you put into play, okay, we just went on the road and beat Notre Dame at South Bend. If we beat Auburn at home here, you start looking at that October schedule and you go, who are they playing that's better than them? If you're looking at a team that's beaten Notre Dame and Auburn, you're like, nobody. There's some toss-ups. You start to feel really good about, like I said before, the whole country would be looking at A&M and going, they're a playoff contender coming out of September. So I think Notre Dame is a big swing game, and I almost wanted to pick Auburn as the second, but instead I'll go with Florida.
That's what I was thinking.
At Kyle Field. I want to go Florida or South Carolina. I've just got this feeling that Florida is going to be better than South Carolina this year. And maybe I'm giving too much to Napier. I don't think Shane Beamer is that great of a coach either. I think he's done a nice job there. I think he particularly makes them really good at home. I just think Florida, it's just a feel, because I want to say Florida and Lagway. Sellers has proven a lot more than Lagway so far. Now, I think he's great. There's something about Florida where I think that's going to be a swing game in A&M season. I really do. Those are my two.
Okay. 2 must-wins.
There's several must-wins, but if I'm picking like the top 2 where I go to have the season you want, right? Man, I think it's super obvious. If I dub Florida swing, I don't think there's any way around saying South Carolina and Auburn at home. You have to win. You have to win those football games, and they're not going to be easy. I think Auburn's going to be one of the more improved teams in the league. South Carolina going to be playing one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and still a fast, physical defense, even though they lost a bunch of guys. But I think you gotta win those games at home, and you lost them both on the road last year. And we sat there and, well, they're better at home. Then that's what A&M needs to be this year. You have to, if you're going to say it one way, you have to say it the other, especially if either one of those games is at night, which I think Auburn is, am I right? Or they're afternoon or night?
Afternoon or night, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, those two are must-wins. They are.
All right. I think I know your first answer to this next one, but I might be wrong.
Okay.
2 scariest games. You want me to tell you who I think you're going to say?
Yeah.
I think Arkansas is one of your 2.
Absolutely. That's the first time it's in Fayetteville since 2013.
Mm-hmm.
And that place was tough on Johnny and Mike and, that offensive line. That was a tough place to play.
I don't think the roster's that good from what I've read and what insiders have told me, but it doesn't matter.
Well, it never mattered at neutral. We have 13 years of evidence that says it didn't matter at a neutral site game.
Right.
Now that's a real home field advantage. Ask Tennessee. Texas, I think, got lucky last year playing them at like 11 a.m. Lucky.
Yep.
Because that game was, I think it was 20-10, but I think it was 13-10 with Arkansas with a lot of momentum in the fourth quarter. Like that felt like Arkansas could spring an upset on a Texas team that was 5 times better than them. They beat Tennessee. That game was at night. They knocked off a Tennessee team that went to the playoff. Tennessee went 10-2, right?
Yeah.
One of those 2 losses was to Arkansas, at Arkansas. So that one's scary as hell. And that's a weird one because it could be a swing game. It's a scary game. It also needs to be a must-win game almost. So that's a tall order.
Yep.
And Arkansas fans are going to think that's the game they're going to win. They're looking this year at that schedule, unless they're just so beaten down by losing to A&M, which a lot of their fans are, and they go, we'll never beat A&M. They Lou Holtz it, which is ironic because he was, their head coach there. They Lou Holtz it. We can't beat you. But that day, they're going to think it, and that crowd's going to think it, and they're going to feel it. So that's going to be one of the more hostile environments that A&M walks into next year. It'll be just as hostile, I think, as
South
Austin and Baton Rouge. It's going to be a lot like South Carolina last year and Auburn. And A&M was 0-2 in those.
And then I'm going to say your other scariest is Auburn. Because I'm trying not to duplicate, but at the same time, I can see Auburn being scary because of the wide receivers.
Again, but it's also one that I called a must-win, which makes it, they've got playmakers at receiver. Say what you will about DJ Durkin. They played good, tough, physical defense over there last year, and they didn't suck on defense when he was here. That's, he's an upper echelon DC in today's SEC. Whether people want to say so or not, he is. His career resume and statistics will probably tell you that. And they got Coleman, and they went and got Singleton from Georgia Tech, who was a playmaker. So much of that is it's gonna depend on you went off and you pulled a quarterback from Oklahoma, Jackson Arnold, who everybody had as a 5-star, and he couldn't get it done there. But you're going to bring him there. I thought it was interesting. I don't know if it was McElroy or Aaron or Jordan Rod. I don't know who said it, but they were like, you are going in. He was slower in decision making, and you're going into a Hugh Freeze offense that just depends on being quick with that stuff. And they were wondering how it fit. But if it does fit, and if he does look like what people thought he was, and he can run around and make things happen, they'll be a much improved football team. And it's early.
He's a better quarterback than Peyton Thorne. I mean, I know.
I think he's got to be.
I mean, and his numbers at Oklahoma were not that bad.
Mm.
He didn't have players around him.
He looked pretty bad at times though. Against
but he had 2 interceptions this whole time there.
But then on times he ran around and looked pretty good. So, yeah, Auburn's scary. Both those teams are going to knock off a couple teams better than them next year. Don't be that team.
Yeah. I think that's it. I got a couple things for you tomorrow.
That's it?
Or do you want to keep going?
What else did you have?
I have a few for tomorrow, but I'll ask you. Here's one: the newcomer, transfer, or freshman that potentially this particular season, has the highest ceiling. Not over his career at A&M. This particular year.
Newcomer, transfer, or freshman has the what?
Highest ceiling this year.
Concepcion. Marco Jones. I'm thinking of secondary. I'm thinking of linebacker, D-line. I like Onyedin, but I think Hayes / Searcy would be way up there. And I don't think we talk enough about Mario Craver. Go look at some of Mario Craver's Mississippi State highlights from last year. Go watch his catches he made against A&M. Go watch his. He had a long one against Texas and Georgia. One was a touchdown. I think the touchdown may have come against Georgia. It like 40, 50-yard plus plays against Texas and Georgia. A&M guys talk about how tough he was to cover. Go watch Craver's little sizzle reel from last year. We don't talk about him enough because of Concepcion. And I can't finish this thing without saying I think Ashton Bethel-Roman is a name that, if he's healthy next year, he's going to be a big impact guy. And I told you, could be a potential starter at receiver. I think people are sleeping on.
He's a name that I think since the spring game, I've heard every once in a while get a little bit louder.
And you should. I mean, you were hearing it. If you're really listening, like I was, you were hearing it late last season. And there were some games where they were planning to put him out there and take some shots down the field. And I think he's going to be a big play guy. I don't know to what level of consistency. I think he could be a guy that could end up being a starting receiver.
Billy, thank you, sir.
All right, Dave.
Thanks, everybody. Fall camp, Luchador.
Starts when?
This week, Wednesday. And we'll probably do one, right before the season starts again?
For sure.
Yep.
Season preview. This was a camp preview.
Camp preview. We'll see you on TexAgs Live on Monday. Thank you.